Hi screen printers, this is Ryan Cassidy with Ryonet's APG crew and Portland Prints. Today we are going to learn how to take a folder like this and turn it into something exciting like this with your brand, your customers, or anything in between. Important things with palette tape is when we're doing this, the times that you would want to change them would be for an aesthetic. The other times would be it's at the point that they're extremely black, it's got enough cotton and buildup that you could be printing and there might be like a spot that actually sticks out onto your garment. So other than just wanting a nice, good, clean looking palette, you can put these to the test for quite a length of time. And there's a few ways. So some people will cut the edges how I'm doing on these palettes. Other people will just straight fold. I prefer the cut just so I don't have excess, but I used to do the fold method. So that one's really just about your preference. Usually we have lasers for our ROQ automatics. We were nice enough though and sent off this part for a customer, and ours is on the way. So we're gonna do it old school, which is my preference. It's what I've been doing for a long time, and we'll just drop it onto there. But if we had the options, we would set up our lasers with a contact point maybe here, and you'll also have dots, so you could use the dot as a corner point and a corner point. But for now, we'll draw it, and once we add just a small amount of adhesive, we'll set our cardstock onto here, print it, and our goal is to run it through this conveyor dryer, real low temp, faster speed, using combination with the warp drive, the faster temp on the dryer, and then having them on a flat layout. Hopefully that's gonna have it where they're not stacking together and having ink bleed over. But we'll find that out and see how it goes. So this part of the section, we are doing film. We are printing our film positive, getting that lined up with our Adobe Illustrator software. We have AccuRip as our RIP program, and my favorite, Epson, as our printer. We're going to be doing this with our powering the print. We have our nice registration marks and good halftones to be able to make the screen that we need for our flat stock. So we're going to be going over a durometer on the print job with the flat stock. In most cases with your ROQ, it's going to show up with a squeegee with this color blade, kind of like a pinkish tint to there. And this is an 80 durometer. That's going to do just fine for your flat stock. The other one would be, I just have it on a manual squeegee, but it would be yellow. And this is going to be dropping down to a 70 durometer. And then going up, one of my favorites is actually a 70, 90, 70. So it'll be 3 blades pressed in together. Really a lot of it's gonna come down to your preference as a printer. I use the standard ROQ 80 durometer for almost all of my jobs, covers what I need to, and the things that I use is my off contact and my pressure. But having a thicker durometer, like a higher blade, so your 80s and your 90s, it's gonna leave a cleaner cut, a sharper cut, which for our flat stock does help and have quite a bit of benefits on that one. But the other things is if our print, let's say, like I think this one's about an 18-inch squeegee. If we had an 18-inch print, we'd actually want to step up to a 20, or anything that just gives an extra inch on your right and your left side. We have our Comet White and we have our warp drive. These are going to be what we're printing our poster stock with. Warp drive allows us to cure at 185 degrees Fahrenheit. But with that on garments, it's usually to be at a higher reference, but having for poster stock, this is gonna be very beneficial for us. So, get our ink scale. I'm gonna mix a quart for this first run, just because that should give us enough for a reference, and I'd rather mix less than more, and have to do it a second round on stuff that we put warp drive in. Once you put warp drive into your ink, it's gonna be 1.7%, but you can't mix that back into your main batch. Always satisfying to open up a new thing of ink, especially if we have our Green Galaxy, Comet White. Stuff's awesome. Good opacity, real soft feel. And if you ever open up your Comet White, you guys, and it's pretty thick, this is a good viscosity, but if it's just too thick to there or dried out a little bit, you can actually add some water into it. It is a water-based ink. A little bit goes a long way, so add a little and keep stirring it into there. And if you're nervous about, messing up your whole batch with too much water, one, you can just leave out the container and it'll dry up just a little bit, being mindful of time. And then 2 would be just doing a smaller container for your first run. Once you're comfortable with that, move up to a larger container. And then I was actually off on the weight, so I forget about different viscosities and opacities. So white ink has a much higher pigment than others. So the 600 grams that would usually be good on, let's say, of like a Mars Red or something like that, this is gonna be a heavier ink. So we'll double down and we'll go up to probably about 1200. If this is filling up the quart halfway, see where that puts us at. Yep, I always check off of memory, but I do believe it's that. No, it's 1.5, so I was gonna do 1.7. That 0.2 would have been a big deal, but it's always good to follow rules and be exact. Tear this out, and then let's get to our 18. So what I'll do is I'll be pouring it quite a bit faster, and then once it starts getting closer to my number, at that point, that's when I really slow it down. I mean, really, really important to stir this up. I mean, we could be stirring this for a few minutes and it won't even matter. It's getting all of that components into there, because this is what allows us to have that lower cure temperature. And the most important thing is with water-based inks, they need to have forced air to be able to be removing the moisture for a full cure. This is more so for garments, mind you, from posters, but having that warp drive, you have a few benefits. We have all of our pallets marked up where we're going to be placing our flat stock. We have our screen set up. We're using, I believe, this is a 200 mesh?
230.
A 230 mesh to hold the fine detail. So on automatics, they use less ink, but you are going to need to put more ink into there because you're going to need to have the screen be wet, flooded, and not printing dry. Otherwise, you can either pop a screen, have a bad quality print, or just a few different things into there. Let's drop this down. I always like to check my off contact first, which we have a few points with that one. First though, I'll have you come on this side so you can see. We're gonna undo our back clamp. If this clamp is locked onto there, we're not gonna be able to adjust it at all. So I'll release that, and I'm gonna have options with these knobs onto here. So at my fronts, I'm at about a 1/2 inch, which seems pretty good. I'm not resting onto the poster. And on my back, I have that same matching half, so we're gonna actually be able to roll with that for our off contact. Lock our screen back in. Other things as well as with pressure. So right now we're at about 40 pounds of pressure, which should be easily good enough to clear the screen. It being water-based, it's gonna clear easier, and the less pressure that you can have on a press while you're still clearing your screen, having a good print is gonna be very important. So, got this teed up. Last things is going to be just on setting with our print head here. It's going to be my angle for my squeegee, my angle for my flood bar. I like to be at about a 12.5. Anywhere to 10 to 15 is usually a pretty good one for my squeegee. And then we'll go with our flood bar, and we'll put that one at about a 15. I feel like that should be pretty good for clearing for us. Going to be printing a 500 piece run. This one will actually be our powering the print, and the next one will be our Allmade. So excuse me on that one. Doing on our automatic. Got our foot pedal set up, and let's go. So going over some processes and things and how we're curing this. We have a flat stock, but most importantly is it's got an adhesive onto here, and if we can't peel that and have the adhesive be responsive, that's gonna be bad for our customers or whoever is gonna be receiving that onto there and using it. So what we've done, we already went over a little bit, but we used our warp drive at a 1.5% with our inks to have a lower cure temperature. We're running these through the conveyor dryer at a pretty fast speed and a lower temp. I think these are about 160 degrees Fahrenheit. And what we did on the first run is it runs it through. I don't even want to be able to on a video, but it's kind of tacky, like a little bit glossy onto there. But once we run it through a second time, it's fully dry, it's crisp, and I don't have any hesitation when I'm stacking these on top to have a bleed through on the back, because that's the last thing that we're gonna want or wanna need onto there. And always keeping in mind that I can peel this for when we're ready to ship off the shirt or whatever we're throwing into this package that you're printing for. But warp drive is gonna be a big help and a big benefactor. Other things too though is that since this is a cardboard and has a little more to it, this is gonna absorb ink better. If we were printing on envelopes, just like a standard envelope, we're gonna wanna really, really have a small light ink deposit, and you could probably even let those air dry with warp drive, put them into a rack if you don't have a conveyor dryer, even a flash dryer. But the most important things is like how I'm running these through twice. And what I'm doing is having finesse versus just bringing up to a full temp and either possibly burning these, burning my adhesive, or even just overcooking my ink. Mesh counts though, we've went over, but this is a 230 mesh. If I was printing on that envelope, and especially of the different types of ink, this is a white Comet white, it has quite a bit more viscosity. It's going to be going through the screen a little thicker. If I'm doing pitch black, Mars red, or any other thin water-based inks, that'll drop through the screen faster. So I might actually step up to a 280 or a 305 even, possibly, depending on my art and my detail on that color. Now, still being able to use a 230 in white, if I wanted to have a second color onto here, I would keep the 230 for white, 305 for like a black, 280, and a lot of it just testing out to there. Make sure you get a clean, crisp image. Last things though is auto versus manual. A lot of people out to there don't have an auto or access to that, or building up to there. You can still do these on a manual press. The things that are going to be important is consistency with your print, because it is human power. And, you know, whether you be tired or just have like an off angle or a different amount of pressure, that's going to be the biggest significance. Is an auto, it's going to be pretty much from first to last the same, but with a manual, you're going to have a little bit different. That being said, if you're kind of a neat freak, you can use that as practice and training to your goal to just match that quality of an auto, that your first print to last print is the same, and just striving to be that better printer that we always want.